Hello, I'm Tim Troupe Noonan, author, publisher, and also host for Kettering University's podcast, Horsepower to Hyperloops. I'm also, a few years and a few pounds ago, a former touring tennis professional who began his career, like so many others, playing for the legendary Dick Gould. Dick is the winningest tennis coach by about the same margin Secretariat won the Belmont in NCAA history with 17 national titles. This places him among the top 5 in titles won among all NCAA sports. In short, Dick has far more NCAA titles than coaches like John Wooden or Bear Bryant or Nick Saban, in most cases combined. We're here today to talk with Dick about his new and very unusual book, Anatomy of a Champion, which will be available this summer from Waterside Productions in paperback, audio, and digital formats. I say unusual because Anatomy of a Champion, which has the subtitle of Building and Sustaining Success in Sport, Business, and Life, departs radically in concept, approach, and final format from the usual memoir. In fact, Anatomy of a Champion is not really a memoir at all. At some levels, in its unusual breadth in coalescing the views and perspectives of many successful people, it's not even fully Dick's book. But it's just this breadth and depth which will make it of interest not only to tennis fans, but to anyone interested in leadership or team building or sustaining success over time in any endeavor. Anatomy of a Champion is actually not Dick's first book. In 1966, he wrote Tennis Anyone, a bestseller for fledgling teachers, which sold 500,000 copies in 6 editions and 3 languages. Anatomy of a Champion, then, is to some extent a career bookend to his first book, but it has not been written by a coach from his rocking chair at the end of a career. Dick does not have a rocking chair. After retiring from coaching, Dick served as Stanford's director of tennis for 14 years, retiring fully from Stanford in 2018 after 52 years as the longest-serving employee in Stanford history. And because Dick knows how to win national titles, but Dick does not know how to slow down, he now works about 1,000 hours a week as vice chairman of TeachAids, a nonprofit social venture that develops scientifically based technology products to forestall and fight HIV, AIDS, concussions, and COVID-19. Dick, that was a long introduction, but I'm really proud of being with 200 other guys, part of your legacy. And I'm equally honored to have been your collaborator on Anatomy of a Champion. Thanks for putting up with me all those years ago on court, and thanks for inviting me to work with you on what is an extraordinary, and I'm going to say it again, unusual book. So that's where I'd like to start, where I said I would a few minutes ago. Can you tell us about your first idea for this book and why and how it came together?
Tim, thanks, and great to be with you. Gosh, I don't know, people don't realize that you were a touring pro, top 200 in the world, which is not easy, believe me, and you were at school during our first couple of championship teams, and so we kind of grew up together.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I when I got to school, you were 32, and I thought you were ancient at that time. So we did kind of grow up together.
A little bit of rejoinder. I didn't win any of those championships. I didn't win ball in those championships. You guys won them, not myself. But this all germinated a little bit when a really good friend of mine, Tim, a fellow named Jack Gifford, who was at the time the CEO and founder of a company of Maxim Integrated Circuits, the semiconductor industry, asked me one day as I was walking to work, and he was working out in the field adjacent to the tennis courts, Dick, how did you guys win so many championships? And we only won about 10 or 12 at the time. And I didn't think too much about that. I just said, Jack, we have the best players. And it's true. We had great, great players, Tim.
You were asked this question, how did you do it? How did you do it for so long? And you didn't just go back and write it down. How did you proceed?
I sent 200 guys, yourself included, thanks for answering, a questionnaire of 20 questions. Did we have a culture? What's the importance of trust? How do we deal with egos? A big thing in any high-powered organization. How do we sustain our success for so long, our longevity? And I didn't know the answers to these questions. It was really interesting to me Tim, to see the response from these guys over a 40-year period, pretty much the same throughout. And it really helped me kind of focus in on things that were important in leadership. And I thought, gosh, I have to share this. It's not me saying how I did it, because I didn't really know. I didn't have a coaching philosophy really at that time. I just kind of was going by the seat of my pants, and my guys helped me form this through trial and error and a lot of mistakes. And it's really interesting to hear the players themselves give their thoughts to what led to success in our particular sport, and our sport being only an example of another business or family or social situation or a group of setting of some kind. So I think there are some lessons here, and it makes for a really nice read.
See, I think that's what attracted me about this, because I had answered the questions and you'd been compiling all this stuff. And what it came out to be was not your memoir. What the term I think we came up with is it as a collective memoir, because what was it? 83% of the guys responded, which is a ridiculous response rate.
I was amazed. I'm on a two-hour job. If you did a good job with it, about 2 hours to finish the questionnaire. They're all essay questions, 20 of them. I was amazed to get a response like that.
Well, it speaks to either the loyalty we have to you, the respect we have for you, or the fact that we just don't want you calling us 93 times a month to get us answers, which would also happen.
That would happen.
But what you had was something that, as I've heard you state it's not a story about how to build the team, how to build leadership, how to succeed over time from the standpoint of the manager. This is from the standpoint of those who were managed over 40 years. And I would like to point out, every single one of these guys is an NCAA champion, because we all won a national championship at some point in our career there, thanks to you and thanks to each other. And these were not dumb guys. Certainly, they went into, something happened here or there, but almost to a person, they're successful in far beyond tennis. A lot went on to become world champions. A lot of names everybody knows: the Bryan brothers, Johnny McEnroe, Roscoe Tanner, Sandy Mayer, Gene Mayer, all these guys, top tens in the world. A lot of them went on, but many of them went on from there to become CEOs and entrepreneurs and physicians. And Scott Matheson, my teammate's a judge. They went into all these different fields. And of course, many became tennis coaches. Nick Saviano is one of America's leading coaches for the USTA down in Florida, another teammate of mine. So when these people speak to success, they are speaking, to my mind, with a lot more gravitas than any one individual, yourself or anybody else included, can bring to it. And that's what I found special, and why I thought it's fun to get involved with this. So it was really difficult to leave out some and turn this into a readable book of 90,000 words. But that's what we did throughout this process. And I think it turns out to be, again, an interesting book from a lot of perspectives with a lot of these guys.
Yeah, Tim, I think that was the hardest part, of course. Thank gosh for you. You've had the experience. You've written 35 some books yourself and all kinds of different subjects. And you were a tremendous guide to me in terms of what to leave out, what to include, how to frame it better. I could not have done this without you, and I'll be forever indebted. But the hardest part for me was leaving out quotes from guys. I think most everyone is in here. Those 160 guys who responded, almost everyone, maybe 2 or 3 are not. But it really was hard to leave them out. You're talking about what these guys did, and I unfortunately 4 of the fellows to whom the book is dedicated are now deceased. But I want to read one quote. It was kind of fun, and it really struck me. One of my favorite players from Atlanta, Georgia, Johnny Corse, class of '82. A little bit
Good guy.
A great guy, a wonderful person. He said, many of us went on to careers outside of tennis and business, law, as John did. Medicine's a lot of guys, they're doctors, real estate, public service, and much of that success is undoubtedly due to what we witnessed. Well, it takes a it takes an army, believe me, and I'm so proud of what these guys have accomplished off the court, Tim. It's been incredible. And to have been a part of their formative age in college, to me, it was just a real special experience.
I want to emphasize when you get into this book, um, we haven't done the math, but I'm guessing 30 to 40% is your words, and 60%, the larger share, is the words of all these guys broken down into some different categories that I think are not solely by any manner means of interest to tennis fans. There are categories like leadership, and as you just mentioned, relatable goals and feeling of relevance. And there's a quote here by Chico Hagee from a great friend of mine. The biggest lesson coach taught us had nothing to do with tennis. He's the greatest example I've ever met of make people feel important. Not even Dale Carnegie could match him. There's no more important lesson. Well, I know a lot of guys that learned that lesson from you. And that has nothing to do with tennis. That's something that whether you're a head of a sales department or head of a company or a physician or anything else, that's a really important lesson. And that's why I think what's in here goes a lot beyond tennis. One topic that I get a kick out of is managing egos. I mean, there were one or two egos on those teams. Maybe 7 or 8 on each one. And some of the egos were slightly larger than Hoover Tower there just across the street. So talk to me. I know Scott Davis spoke about it. A lot of people talked about it. How did you work about managing egos? Because that's a problem a lot of leaders have, I think.
Well, I think, first of all, you want to hire for your team as a leader the best people. And most of the best people have a good belief in themselves and what they're trying to do. And the question is, how do you manage that if it starts to get out of hand? Now, I don't have a book on how to manage egos, believe me. I think it was, well, I'm going to read, Tim, what Scott said. I think it was key. And I don't know quite how this happened, but Scotty was class of 84 and was top 11 in the world and number 2 in singles, number 2 in doubles, I think, a really great player and great person. So his coach was and still is the master at getting the most out of any personality with as little drama as possible. He could mold all these different personalities toward success. I believe he knew the true meaning of the sum of each part is greater than its whole. Coach's ability to take team after team to the championship is a credit to his management skills of all egos. He was an absolute genius at balancing this. And this is the thing, Tim, I didn't realize this was happening. And yet these guys picked up on some of these things. And I couldn't write about that because I wasn't really that aware of it. I just know that we were dealing with it every day. And if one guy got too far off kilter, it could affect the team's performance, as it would any team. And some way we had to manage all that. So Billy Mays, I think, made a nice comment. Bill Mays, one of my favorites, women's coach at UC Davis for years now. Great coach, great person. He said, Coach was successful at doing this because he himself showed no ego. He didn't fight back with his ego. And I think that was relevant. I hadn't thought about that. So these guys pointed out things to me I would never have thought of putting into a book. And yet I think they did add to our success and helped. And it was nice to hear this from them.
That brings up another point about this book. It is a tennis book too. That's it happened on and around tennis courts. And there's a lot of fun stories there. And I remember you put quite a few in. One of my favorites is after that amazing summer when John McEnroe came out of the qualifying to get to Wimbledon semifinals, he was due to come to Stanford that fall as a freshman, but you weren't sure that was going to happen. Am I right?
Well, I didn't know. He not only got the semifinals of Wimbledon as a qualifier, but he kept on playing all summer long and doing well throughout the whole summer after getting the semifinals at Wimbledon. Excuse me. And so I wasn't sure that he would. I thought maybe he might turn pro and I would lose him and lose a top player and a great person who led our team beautifully that year. He called me from the airport. In those days, you could pick up the guys and give them a ride to campus when they got here. And it was still legal in those days to do such. And phone rang. Coach, Mac, I'm at the airport. Oh, John, San Francisco Airport. I thought you turned pro. I gave your scholarship away. A little more, or something like that. A little more silence, and then we both had a good laugh. And I picked him up and brought him down to campus.
There's a lot of people talking here about your marketing capabilities. I think innovation is what you brought to it, and I think a lot of the guys talked about, because a lot of them went into business and they learned to think differently, think about possibilities, think about what could be, not what is, from what you did. But when you got there, as you've pointed out, the players didn't believe. They just were out there having, playing tennis in the afternoons. And, you created so many different, which I've referred to, innovations. How did you approach this? How were you thinking in that regard about how to approach your job, how to approach tennis, how to approach everything that you were doing?
Well, I was very lucky, Tim, because I worked in an athletic department in an era where they said, well, coach, you say you want this, but we can't afford to do it. We have our budget, our athletic budget is barely getting by now, or whatever the case might be. They said, but if you can do it, go do it. And I was very involved in the community in my other jobs before I came to Stanford, and had built up a pretty good following for the tennis world in general. And this carried over to Stanford. We did a lot of outreach with the community affairs. And so we took the shack, we built a clubhouse, thanks to Ralph Rodriguez's family. And then a little later on, we built part of our stadium. And then just an incredible gentleman who I just happened to have a chance meeting with, Ted Toby, decided that he wanted to help our program. And he came in and helped us finish off the stadium at the end. Just so thankful for what he did. Most programs who are doing well have an angel behind them at some point along the way. And Ted was mine in every respect, as well as a great friend. But I felt, Tim, as I coached more and more, and as time went on after 20 years or so, that I couldn't just sit back, that I had to take advantage of the creativeness and entrepreneurship that Stanford allowed me to have to do something special and different. And I was really moved when I saw the Oakland Raiders that just won the Super Bowl, and their general manager, Coach Al Davis, someone asked him at the preseason press conference before the next season, after winning the Super Bowl, what he expected for this year. And he said, it's a lot like the Red Queen told Alice. You have to run as fast as you can to get somewhere. But once you get there, you have to run twice as fast to stay there. And that really stuck with me and kind of became my mantra. And I really took on a philosophy that to show that I was still being relevant, not just sitting on the job and on past successes, that we really had to do something different that had never been done before and really do it well so people remember it about every 4 or 5 years. And so that was really my impetus, just thinking that trying to stay relevant. I think we also do that in business. One of the fellows who wrote a foreword for my book, I'm so thankful for, Jerry Porras, was a co-author with Jim Collins on Built to Last. And they picked out 100 companies, the top companies in the United States. And one of the criteria of the great companies was their longevity. Those that had been there for 100 years or more. And that book had a big impact on me as well. And it just was, it wasn't just organization and leadership, but that was a big part of why they were around so long. In fact, they were continually innovating and reinventing themselves as the market changed and as the world changed, and their flexibility to be able to do that. So those are big lessons for me along the way.
Well, let me jump in. I think that lesson again accrued to the players, and I want to quote Scott Love from the class of '79. He says, "What struck me the most about Stanford tennis was the level of innovation in marketing the college game." And that's not marketing Stanford tennis; that's marketing the college game. Dick was way ahead of everyone. He was building the modern game of college tennis. It was visionary and it was audacious beyond imagination. He's a role model for rugged individualism with vision. Now here comes a very interesting comparison. I worked for Steve Jobs twice but Dick Gould is the other person in my life who has walked the talk. And I think that speaks a lot. Guys were watching. These are guys that are going on to different roles and knew they were. And they were watching this constant innovation in marketing. And, again, that's another one of many quotes that comes out about this, because there's a list in the back of the book of so many things, from scoreboards to community involvement to, it's just, there's a lot of pages in the back. It's more an appendix, but there's a lot of stuff that was done, as you said, to bring out something new every couple of years.
Well, I think that was an important thing. I must mention that Scott Love is one of the 4 players also has passed, to whom the book is dedicated just since last year. Tremendous person, very, very loyal, never a starter, but always there to help and always an integral part of the group. So we miss him greatly.
I think it's important to leave people with the idea that it's not the standard memoir. It's really a collective memoir of 166 leaders and world champions and CEOs and entrepreneurs who really play off of what they learned from you and talk about all these issues. The book is Anatomy of a Champion: Building and Sustaining Success in Sport, Business, and Life. Is there anything further that we should that we ought to throw out to people that they ought to be looking for in this book, which, again, I'll throw in a plug, will be out this summer from Waterside Productions in audio, digital, and paperback? I don't know, maybe by 4th of July or sometime in July, somewhere very, very soon. Is there anything we should add that we haven't talked about?
Gosh, Tim, I think the biggest thing for me is this. It's not me writing what the top 10 success are, something like that. Just a reminder that it's entirely from the players, those who are being led and managed. I was going by the seat of my pants. I was learning every day, trying to get a little better each day, just as you guys were. And we're all in it together. And we had a lot of fun, Tim. I think the book's a fun read. I think the book's brought alive by the players' quotes. There are a lot of funny ones in there, but all with a lesson. And I think that it's really important in this journey as we go through our jobs and our daily lives, we keep things in perspective, that we have fun as we go. I think that came out pretty well in the book as well.
It did. There's a lot of fun in the book because we had a lot of fun.
And I think that's an important lesson. And that was by design. I enjoyed you guys and being around you. Teaching really is a very, very sacred responsibility. It's just, and especially at the level where I was, I'm dealing with you guys who are 18 years old. You're free and off from your family and the family boundaries, and you can make mistakes and you can not make mistakes. You're on your own. And to be there and go through this with you guys, when you have this freedom all of a sudden, and try to keep things in perspective and not get so carried away with trying to win or do this or do that. I think that comes across pretty big in the book too, that the guys talk about after I made a mistake my first couple of years, because I said, guys, we win this match, we're going to qualify this, we have to do this, we have to do this, and then we'll win this. And my guys got so tight, they couldn't hit a ball. And I gradually realized this. Once we won the championship, our first one, Tim, when you were in school, I realized that, hey, I have the monkey off my back now. I proved it could be done. We rose from a low of 33 in the country my second year up to the national champions a couple of years later, 7-year process. And I just learned that it was not the most important thing. And rarely it comes out of the book big time did the players refer to coach ever talking about winning. We knew what we're supposed to do. We didn't talk about it. We never put that pressure on us. And I think that's something to remember with our own children, our families. There's the process involved, and that process is all important, and make it enjoyable, make it fun.
Well, I think it's also one of the hallmarks. We've all talked about many times. We didn't get there freshman fall and found a set of rules that we hadn't had to follow. That wasn't the way you coached. You coached, I think, by expectation, which didn't need to be articulated as much. And yet, I can remember a couple of times when I crossed a line one way or the other. Maybe a racket accidentally flew out of my hand or something. I certainly wouldn't have thrown it. and I would look over and you were sitting there going, and that's all it took. I mean, I didn't even have to come over. It was already done. You had a unique style, which I think, again, you talk about, you can see it evolve in the book as the guys from the 90s and the 2000s talk, as opposed to back in the 60s and 70s. But it's still you. And I think there's an extraordinary amount of lessons in here, largely because there's an extraordinary amount of perspectives and views, and yet there's a cohesion because it comes from a single source. So I think it's very interesting. I hope people will pick it up. It's a book you can read through because it's an interesting story. It's also a book, don't you think, that you can read in? If you're a head of a sales department, if you are a coach of any sport, you can pick it up and find a topic that is of concern to you, whether it's team building, whether it's managing egos, or whether it's balance, and find it and read some of that, don't you think?
Well, and again, Tim, it's not me preaching this is how it's done. I was just trying to get a little better each day, whatever it was. But it's the guy's reaction to what was being done. Some good, some bad. I learned a ton, believe me. I made as many mistakes as anyone in my team ever made. But that's how you learn. And I think that lesson is valuable. I think the other part of this, Tim, as we try, there's so many leadership books out there, and this really is a leadership book. There's no one way to lead. You really have to be true to yourself, your own personality, your own core values. Fortunately, my parents taught me great ones by example. And that's not something you tell somebody. You don't tell someone to do this, do this, do this. You do it by example and how you live. And so hopefully some of these things came across and help make people better in some way, and indirectly, if you wish. And I think that's the most effective way.
Well, Dick, you are, I mean, the facts are, if you want to go by winning percentages, I also think if you want to go by loyalty, showing that 83% of people responded to what was a questionnaire that took 2 hours to respond. You are unquestionably the greatest tennis coach in American history, and maybe many have said, opined, the offer that you might be the greatest college coach of any sport. And I know I speak for my 199 peers and colleagues that it was an honor playing for you, and for me in particular. The opportunity to work on this book was fabulous. It was wonderful. And the book is Anatomy of a Champion, Building and Sustaining Success in Sport, Business, and Life, due out this summer in multiple formats. Grab it, take a look at it. I think it's a worthwhile read. Thanks to Dick. Thanks to all the guys that contributed.
Especially Tim, thank you. It's been an honor working with you and your expertise as a writer and friend and collaborator, and especially my guys. I mean, you guys all are my guys. You're part of my family, and we went through a lot together in our ups and downs. And in the end, it was a great ride. Thank you so much, Tim.